Evan Turner also has a podcast out there with Andre Iguodala, and they were talking about Paul George in the playoffs, and if he signed to Philadelphia, how this team would then be soft because Paul George comes up small in the postseason.
I have the direct quotes if you'd like me to.
Please. Yes.
Quote, PG has a history of not showing up. I never met a human that would let a media rumor drive his energy or personality. You know how soft that team going to be if him and Embiid go together. End quote. That's a real big claim from Meat Wad from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, but you know.
Like I said, hasn't Evan Turner talked about how trade rumors impacted him? Isn't that letting a media rumor? I don't know.
He did. Yeah. So again, played with him that year in Indiana, or was it the half a year when he was traded and he was back the next season? He finished out his time there. But, I mean, it was like a whatever kind of thing. But as Derek said, he said it himself. He was in the locker room with him. So,
and it ties into PG's perception.
Yes.
Right? Like
Playoff P, by the way.
It's certainly, and I've said, I think that's an unfair. I think he's had some awful moments in the playoffs,
man.
But I think it's been
Indiana. Paul George against LeBron in Miami was.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. He had some huge moments in Indiana. He had the conference finals run without Kawhi in LA. Like it's a guy. It's not like he is just every year they get to the playoffs and he turns into a pumpkin.
And again, I told you guys, I saw that one firsthand because they were playing Phoenix in the Western Conference Finals, and I was out there. And we were biting our fingernails, sitting on the edge of the seat. That building was tense for a while because, like, oh, okay, we're about to push away from these guys. No, Paul George and Reggie Jackson can't miss. So he has had some really good playoff moments.
Yes. When you play, he's played 114 playoff games. When you play that many playoff games, you're going to have some great moments. You're going to have some moments where you go, my gosh, fucking do something. Like, you're going to have highs and lows. That's how this sport works. Look, I'm not going to say, I'm still trying to figure out how I rank like the top priorities. I'm not 100% sure where I'm at. Do I think that Jimmy Butler might be more bankable in the playoffs than Paul George? I could see that. But there's fit concerns. There's all kinds. There's age concerns. Both of them have various injury concerns. He did just get off of a season where, like, by most advanced metrics, he was a top 25 player. Mm-hmm. I think it was the most efficient in terms of true shooting percentage of his career. Mm-hmm. And I know there's a lot of, there's a podcast episode of Clippers. I don't know if they're fans or if they're like a credential. I think it's more of a fan podcast. But look, when you sit here and watch a player every day for years and there's unmet expectations, you A, know their game better than anyone else, but B, there's frustration that clouds your judgment a little bit. We can go back to almost everyone that has been here with the Sixers, specifically, James Harden last year, where everyone was dunking on him. Everyone was saying he was done, everything, blah, blah, blah. He comes out, he has a good season for the Clippers. A lot of times your own fans are not necessarily the best evaluators because you have that unmet expectations, because you are so frustrated at what hasn't happened that you can be harder on your own people than others. So that's the only thing I would say about Paul George and like maybe sort of like that reputation. I certainly don't think it's completely without merit. Like, he has come up small at various moments throughout his career. He has also come out and really showed out in the playoffs at various points too. But I think the key for me is you're not bringing him in here to lead the offense. You're not bringing him in here to average 25 per game on good efficiency in the playoffs. You're bringing him in here to be a high volume, 3-point shooting third option who can make a play when there's a 4-on-3 or when there's a closeout to attack or something like that. And how much do you trust him to do that? How well do you think his game ages? Those to me are the big concerns. But like I said, I think there's just been so many expectations that haven't been met. I think a good portion of that comes down to injury luck. Like, Kawhi was barely available in this first round series, and that drives a lot of their team. But I understand it too.
And I want to build off of what you're saying there because I think it's important. One, I reject the premise that the guy who just played on a bum knee and with a paralyzed face is soft. And I don't like calling players soft in general, but I especially think it doesn't fit here. But here's the key for me. Even if I were to concede to you, the royal you, that Paul George is soft and playoff P and all this other stuff, if your concern about who they're bringing in is that they fit that in that personality box, and Joel needs this or that's not what they need from their third guy. What you are actually saying is that your confidence in the number one guy is not where it should be. What you're actually saying is that you don't believe in Joel Embiid as the number one alpha dog type guy. And there are plenty of people in Philadelphia, whether it's fans, media, what have you, and nationally, who believe that at this point, like based on Joel's track record. But Paul George is not coming here as like the Moses Malone, right? He's not the MVP who's coming here to then become the guy, the leader, the person on the team. Whoever is coming here, whoever they get, whether it's Paul George, Jimmy Butler, Brandon Ingram, Mikal Bridges, whoever that is, they are sliding into the third spot between Joel and Maxey, and they need to be the best possible number 3 for the team. Do I believe Paul George at this stage of his career can be a number 1 or number 2 guy on any sort of consistent basis? No, not on a contending type team. Do I believe Paul George or the rest of these guys for that matter could potentially be the third best player on a title team? 100%. And that is what this ultimately comes down to. You either have to believe in Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey as the 1 and 2, or you need to start having very serious conversations about how you're going to rebuild and restructure the team to get there, because everything else is just window dressing. I know it seems good. Like in an ideal world, what I love for the third player to be a guy with like Jimmy Butler's personality and Paul George's skill set.
And also 26.
And also, 28 years old. Probably, but you don't get to make that choice. You have to pick from the imperfect options that are in front of them. I still believe in Joel and Tyrese as the franchise pillars that can potentially win a title together. And that's why, as people, I know Elaine Bruno, among other people, he's been the most vocal in the chat today. I'm not calling you out for... And I know you're anti-PG. I know there are a lot of other... I'm just
mentioning you by name on the stream.
There are a lot of other chat. It's all good.
A lot of other anti-PG people in the chat, and I get it. He is not perfect by any means. The real concerns are age, health, and all of that as you are preparing to give him a max contract in his mid to late 30s. I get all that. It really just comes down to where are you at with Joel.
No, and I've said this before, but like every time I watch them, I went, yeah, but the impact doesn't seem as good as the stats suggest. And like I said, you look at Paul, and pretty much every advanced metric had him top 25. He most efficient season of his career, but you watch it, it just didn't seem like that was that reliable, that was that impactful. But to Kyle's point, you're not bringing him in to be a top 25 player. You're bringing him in to be a top 40, top 50 player.
I was going to say top 50 is probably where I'd set that.
And to give you something that you haven't had. And like if you just replace Tobias Harris on that squad this year with a 40% high volume 3-point shooter who can also make decisions and attack a closeout, like holy shit, that changes their world completely. Now it gets real easy to find role players to slot in there. Like I said, Paul George, I'm pretty confident in the fit. The age, the aging, the injuries, the contract, that's where some hesitation comes in. But I do think a lot of people picking him apart are because he went to LA as a top, a 1A option, and they didn't get it done. And they didn't get it done in part because of injuries. They didn't get it done just because it's real tough to win in the NBA and because they never really had the great depth around them. But that doesn't mean he can't be a number 3 alongside Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. And I agree. And it's something Daryl said, where, you're not building a team to win when Joel's not there because that team's not winning a finals anyway. That's part of this discussion. Like, you need somebody whose skill set fits and you can project going forward. I do think Paul George is a little easier to project into his late 30s because he does have a reliable shot. He does have a high release point. I think that is going to translate and stick. The question is, how long will he be a plus defender for? How long will he have any kind of juice off the bounce? That's where the conversation comes in. But I think he will at least be a capable role player for a couple more years here. The question is he the best option? And we will have a little bit of time to debate that.
We all silly like the mayor.